Witam Państwa na forum. Rozpoczynamy 9. forum mieszkaniowe, zrównoważone mieszkalnictwo, zaspokojenie potrzeb mieszkaniowych w Polsce poprzez wykorzystanie istniejących zasobów i narzędzi. Ja nazywam się Marcin Maryl i w imieniu Fundacji Habitat for Humanity Poland bardzo miło jest mi to Państwa dzisiaj przywitać. Forma tego wydarzenia jest hybrydowa, to znaczy, że witam również wszystkie osoby, które towarzyszą nam w formie online, tak jak Państwa tutaj na sali. Cały czas istnieje możliwość dołączenia do nas, zarówno stacjonarnie, jak i online. W tym roku już po raz 9. Fundacja Habitat for Humanity Poland organizuje forum mieszkaniowe. Wydarzenie będzie poświęcone zrównoważonemu mieszkalnictwu, a jego celem jest wywołanie dyskusji w temacie wsparcia mieszkaniowego dla osób szczególnie narażonych na wykluczenie ze względu na trudną sytuację mieszkaniową, w tym również dla osób przybyłych z Ukrainy. Uczestnicy pochylą się m.in. nad możliwościami zwiększenia zasobu mieszkaniowego poprzez adaptację pustostanów, wykorzystaniu modelu najmu społecznego, inwestycją w mieszkalnictwo dostępne cenowo, a także nad zagadnieniami ubóstwa energetycznego i zagospodarowania pustostanów. Oczywiście to wydarzenie nie mogłoby się odbyć bez ogromnego wsparcia naszych partnerów, sponsorów i partnerów medialnych. Chciałbym tutaj wymienić przede wszystkim firmę Henkel, Instytut Rozwoju Miast i Regionów, Centrum Doradztwa Rewitalizacyjnego Instytutu Rozwoju Miast i Regionów, World Urban Forum oraz naszych partnerów medialnych, Architekturę i Biznes, Przegląd Komunalny, Portal Komunalny.pl, Pismo Samorządu Terytorialnego Wspólnota, Informator Mazowsza, Ekonomia.pl, Serwis Administracyjno-Samorządowy, Portal TerasShrodowisko.pl, Urb News, Portal NGO.pl, Biznes i Ekologia oraz raport CSR.pl. Chciałbym również przypomnieć Państwu, że nasze wydarzenie jest częścią World Urban Forum, a dokładniej WUF w Twoim mieście. To patronat udzielany wydarzeniom, które nawiązują tematyką do kwestii poruszonych podczas Światowego Forum Mieszkaniowego, a efektem uzyskania patronatu jest nadanie tytułu oficjalnego wydarzenia towarzyszącego 11. sesji Światowego Forum Miejskiego, które miało miejsce w tym roku w Katowicach. Chciałbym teraz zaprosić na scenę dyrektor naszej fundacji oraz dyrektor naszej odpowiedzi na kryzys w Ukrainie, Rishane Hanifę, razem z Katarzyną Przybylską, szefową naszego rzecznictwa. Pierwszą poproszę na scenę Rishane.
Thanks, Marcin. Good morning, dear colleagues. I'm proud and privileged to deliver this welcome address together with my colleague, Kasia. I would like to first extend a very warm welcome to all of you present here with us today, as well as the participants who have joined us online. We have a number of key partners with us today, including representatives of national governments and local authorities, members of parliament, international organizations, national and international NGOs, representatives from the European Investment Bank, and civil society organizations. I also want to warmly welcome our keynote speakers today. We have with us Dr. Stefan Wettstein, Adjunct Research Fellow, School of Social Sciences, the University of Western Australia. And we also have Olena Stochrin, Managing Partner of Dicto from Ukraine. The Housing Forum in this year, 2022, is indeed a milestone, as it is the first time we are hosting an in-person forum since the pandemic. Affordable housing has always been a very important subject in Poland. And with the more recent geopolitical developments, including the war in Ukraine, there is now a sense of great urgency to work together on this issue. I very much look forward to listening to the views of the various experts speaking during these 2 days, and also look forward to some of the more concrete recommendations that will come out of the Housing Forum. 2022 is also a very significant year for Habitat here in Poland. This year, we mark the 30th anniversary of Habitat in the country. During the past 30 years, Habitat has supported vulnerable families to attain affordable and sustainable housing with work in the cities of Warsaw and Gliwice. we have managed a social rental program, an empty spaces program focused on converting vacant building spaces into housing solutions, and a habitat restore through which we sell donated furniture. Since February, these programs also began prioritizing a response to the Ukrainian crisis. In terms of our regional presence, Habitat has a strong presence in the Central and Eastern European region with country programs in Romania, Hungary, Macedonia, and Bulgaria, in addition to Poland. And our regional office is based out of Bratislava. We also have fundraising entities in the UK, Germany, Ireland, and the Netherlands. So welcome again, and I'll hand over to my colleague, Kasia.
Dziękuję. Dzień dobry Państwu. Bardzo się cieszę, że się widzimy. Co roku spotykamy się na forum mieszkaniowym, żeby rozmawiać o najważniejszych wyzwaniach mieszkaniowych. O tych, z którymi się borykamy w Polsce, w naszym regionie, w Europie, ale chcemy też rozmawiać o rozwiązaniach, które można wdrożyć, tak żeby te wyzwania przełamywać, pokonywać. Przez ostatnie 2 lata mówiliśmy o mieszkalnictwie właśnie w kontekście wyzwań związanych z pandemią COVID-19. Nie wiem, czy jeszcze Państwo pamiętacie, ale mówiliśmy wtedy wszyscy: zostań w domu, w ten sposób będziesz bezpieczniejszy, co skłaniało nas do zastanowienia się, czym jest ten dom, jaki on jest, jaki powinien być i jakie są warunki mieszkaniowe, w których żyjemy. Dodatkowo w ubiegłym roku nasze forum mieszkaniowe było częścią Europejskiego Forum Mieszkaniowego, w trakcie którego pochylaliśmy się nad wyzwaniami w kontekście całego naszego regionu, dostrzegając bardzo wiele podobieństw pomiędzy nami a krajami takimi jak Węgry, Słowacja czy nawet Macedonia. Także to były tematy, o których mówiliśmy rok temu. Wiele z tych wyzwań niestety nadal jest aktualnych. Wiele z nich jest jeszcze bardziej widocznych w tym roku, w związku z tym, że do Polski przyjechało ponad 1,4 miliona osób z Ukrainy, które są zarejestrowane w Polsce, a wiadomo, że tych osób przyjechało czy przejechało przez nasz kraj jeszcze więcej. Polacy okazali wielkie serca w tym roku, goszcząc osoby z Ukrainy też u siebie w swoich domach. Ale to rozwiązanie zwróciło uwagę na inny jeszcze problem mieszkaniowy, z którym się borykamy, czyli problem przeludnienia mieszkań w Polsce. Ponadto ta dużo większa potrzeba, dużo więcej gospodarstw domowych szukających miejsc do zamieszkania pokazało wiele trudności, z jakimi borykamy się na rynku najmu, w tym zwłaszcza brak segmentu tak zwanych dostępnych cenowo mieszkań, czyli po prostu mieszkań, na które byłoby każdego stać. Od lat powtarzamy w Polsce ten taki szacunek, że brakuje od 500 000 do 2 milionów mieszkań dostępnych. I już samo to założenie pokazuje, jak bardzo niezbadany w ogóle jest ten segment i jak wiele jeszcze tutaj potrzebujemy działania, żeby zdiagnozować, ile tak naprawdę tych mieszkań jest potrzebne, ale przede wszystkim, żeby budować, tworzyć i dostarczać te mieszkania, tak żeby każdy znalazł godne miejsce do życia. Biorąc z kolei pod uwagę rosnące stopy procentowe oraz inflację, a także znacząco rosnące średnie ceny czynszu najmu czy zakupu mieszkania, dostęp do rynku mieszkaniowego aktualnie jest wyjątkowo trudny. Natomiast rosnące ceny energii, wyzwania związane z nadchodzącą zimą sprawiają, że wiele osób, myśląc o nadchodzących miesiącach, obawia się w ogóle o swoją sytuację mieszkaniową. I teraz, mówiąc to wszystko na głos, zdałam sobie sprawę z tego, jak wiele tych problemów jest przed nami. Natomiast w czasie najbliższych 2 dni chcielibyśmy rozmawiać nie tyle o samych problemach, ale o ich rozwiązaniach. Co możemy zrobić tu i teraz, co możemy zacząć robić tu i teraz, co przyniesie efekty za jakiś czas, tak żeby tą sytuację poprawiać. I na tym właśnie będziemy skupiać się przez najbliższe 2 dni. Za moment w czasie sesji plenarnej będziemy w znakomitym gronie diagnozować obecną sytuację, podsumowywać ostatnie miesiące i mówić o planowanych rozwiązaniach w związku z wspieraniem osób, które przyjechały z Ukrainy, ale też w związku z odpowiadaniem w ogóle na potrzeby mieszkaniowe w Polsce. A w dalszym ciągu dnia dzisiejszego pochylimy się przede wszystkim właśnie nad tym, jak zwiększać zasób dostępnych cenowo mieszkań. Będziemy mówić o modelu społecznych agencji najmu, będziemy mówić o możliwościach związanych z remontami i adaptacjami pustostanów, będziemy mówić o budowie przystępnych cenowo nowych zasobów mieszkaniowych i pochylimy się również nad zagadnieniami związanymi z nadchodzącą zimą i kwestiami efektywności energetycznej czy ubóstwa energetycznego. Jutro z kolei skupimy się na trochę innych tematach. Będziemy mówić o korelacji pomiędzy polityką społeczną i polityką mieszkaniową. Będziemy dyskutować o roli i zaangażowaniu sektora prywatnego. Będziemy dzielić się doświadczeniami z projektu Empty Spaces naszej fundacji oraz zastanowimy się nad innowacjami. Jak sprawić, żeby innowacje rzeczywiście były wdrażane i miały szansę powodzenia. Także bardzo się cieszę, że jesteśmy tutaj dzisiaj i jutro razem. Zapraszam Państwa do debat i owocnych dyskusji. Dziękuję. I chciałabym teraz zaprosić pana Stefana Wajnczaka.
We also have seen the rise of affordability issues. Again, this is not like a very new topic, because some of the ideas of the last 30 years was that you compete globally by having also cheap labor available. At the same time, the welfare state has retrenched, and social housing stocks often have been sold. So it means you have an affordability problem. We also seen the increasing regulation around housing, that you need to do more and more things. You have to think about disability access, think about environmental concerns. Means costs have increased. Again, affordability issues arise. COVID-19, the recent pandemic has reminded us painfully of the importance of that housing is more than an economic domain, but it's actually a social domain, social reproduction, intimacy. It's about families, households living together and living their daily lives. Access to green spaces has become more important, access to blue and green infrastructure, all those issues that are so hard to accommodate in the current model we're having. All of those points, if you summarize them, can be grouped into housing being now the social question of the century. If you think about the social question, housing really is at the center, isn't it? At the same time, we hear politicians talking about a lot of additional goals, including decarbonization of housing stocks, including population health issues, the sustainable energy use, and so forth. So a lot of goals we have, and we want housing and housing actors to deliver on them. That's obviously not easy. So if you look at a summary of this slide, the inherited structural dilemmas, the pandemic accelerators, and the what I call persistent policy outcome gaps. Politicians, policymakers do one thing, but the outcomes look quite different. That together creates a perfect storm for housing. Yes. Right, fantastic. So, and this is also interesting. A dense slide, don't get confused. The challenge is, if you give keynotes, usually in autumn I'm invited to keynote speeches. And what has happened over the recent years is that every autumn you actually have to really go back and reanalyze what's going on. Katarzyna mentioned it, because things are changing so much and we have to reanalyze what's going on right now. That's what I try to do here in this slide. Looking at the current regime change, because this year, 2022, really signals a strong regime change of the political economy that impacts on economies, on housing, and so forth. What we now see is a more direct, fragmented globalization model, where China-led alliances and Western alliances collide, and that raises all kinds of questions. But we also, for the first time in, I would say, since the 1970s, 80s, we have a strong supply side problem. We cannot produce goods and services anymore to satisfy demand. Now, this is very hard to rectify, isn't it? Because if you think about demand side problems, and that's often to do with psychology, but we're talking about as material issues, supply chain disruptions, and so forth. So we have a real issue at the moment to deal with those. The result, not unsurprisingly, is inflation, and it's also a cost of living crisis and a cost of production pressures as well for businesses, especially smaller ones that don't have the capacity to, relocate production, for example, in other countries and so forth. We see also the severe risk of national prosperity models, including Germany, the UK, and others, where now it's actually a question: how do we produce the prosperity, the income that allows our societies, our people to prosper? For housing, what does it mean? A couple of questions, because I'm not sure what's happening in many ways, but I have some hypotheses. Number one, I think we can expect a significant fall in house prices in the next 1, 2, 3 years, especially in financialized systems, especially in cities. There is a risk, therefore, to leveraged households, overstretched investors, and exposed banks. So in some ways, the 2007-8 situation, global financial crisis, we may see some of those problems reoccurring. I certainly see a real risk of a building construction freeze, I call it, that we actually at the moment struggle to build new houses and even to retrofit, because the interest rates going up, and that will go up further, questions which business models support new building, new construction. We will see with it the probably traumatic housing cost overburdening rates rising. I mean, households don't have enough money to spend to live in housing, including energy poverty and so forth. All those issues. And in addition, and that's what I'll talk about the rest of this presentation, we see absorption pressure for refugee migration intensification And here in Europe, we have the biggest the biggest migration crisis since World War II, means there's real pressure on housing systems to absorb and to integrate right now. With all this rather negative and concerning issues, we also have reference points that tell us that we have to do something. We cannot just stand back. We have to act. So looking at those reference points, legal ones, housing is a human right. You know all this. We certainly all agree with that. It's built in the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, 1948, and you know all those key principles. It's also written in the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. So it's not a want, it's a need. Also, if we look at policy action, just looking at the last 10 years, you see a lot of has happened. Very familiar to all of you is the Sustainable Development Goals, the Goal 11, make cities inclusive, safe, resilient, sustainable, including affordable housing and adequate housing provision. Very important. We also see in the UNECE, the Charter on Sustainable Housing, 4 principles here: environmental, economic, social inclusion / participation, and cultural adequacy. And also very recently, I hope you had a chance to look at this last year, the Housing 2030 framework, the report looking at 4 particular important areas, from good governance to land policy, land very important in terms of the financialization of housing, better finance, and climate sustainability. So a lot of good reference points for all of us. On top of that, intellectuals have produced over the years many interesting frameworks, ideas, principles. I came up with 2 of those models, one for Habitat for Humanity last year. This is what I call the value system of housing, geared particularly towards the developing countries, but also applying to what in the old days would have been called the global north, which is not really the global north anymore. It's intertwined in many ways. So this is the value system of housing, geared towards equity, sustainability, resilience, and trust. Very important. Without trust, we cannot do much in society, as we probably all agree to. And then those 5 areas of housing as a human right, basic need, housing as a home. You can see the pandemic. Housing as a sector, value-creating sector, housing for the environment and for the planet, and housing as a form of development. I also, in 2022, this year, looked at a lot of literatures and distilled them into 12 principles for housing, which could be a compass for post-pandemic housing. So here you can see 12 principles put into categories of human psychology, societal, locational, and structural institutional. So starting from housing as a shelter, having roof over our head, absolute basic human need, no question about this. If you live on the street, homeless, rough from sleeping, you cannot have a good life. This is the number one. But then you're looking at housing as a home, ontological security, social reproduction, housing as a stake in society, that you become an active member in society, you buy into your system. Housing as an asset, financially empowered households. Then looking at those 4 whys, affordability, which is about actually being able to pay for your housing, livability, more locational characteristics, community, the social bonds in your neighborhood and in your areas, and planetary sustainability. And the 3rd area looks at how to do this on a more structural level, including shared prosperity, directed development and planning, integrated housing systems, and tenure balance, shared value sector, and the common good governance. So a couple of points here. I know this presentation is on the website, available very soon. So a good chance for you maybe to go back and then you can, think it up yourself. If you have questions, you can always come back to me and challenge me, which I need also in some ways, And now, with all that, the rather challenging environment and the rather positive reference points that tell us where to possibly go, we can have a look closer at the migrant integration situation. I'm very happy to be part of an international team that looks at the long-term housing for Ukrainian refugees across 5 countries: Poland, Germany, Slovakia, Hungary, and Romania. We have an international structure, again, with local country experts. So it's a very interesting project, still in progress, but I can present some early findings today. Don't worry about this. Basically, what we try to do is, at the end, to look for recommendations on good solutions, good practices that can inform policy programs and institutions in terms of longer-term housing outcomes for Ukrainian refugees. So it's a bit of a project scan. Important here is we want to move from gaps and obstacles to capacities and solutions. And you can see those 5 layers. We look at the legal area, the legal environment, looking at policy and regulation, looking at institutions, the financial investment processes, and very important, we should never underestimate the cultural, attitudinal factors. So what are societies, what are populations, what are politicians prepared to do? If you just look at the plain numbers, we just mentioned it before, you can see that out of those 5 countries, Poland and Germany are those key receiver countries. And Poland is of course number 1, but Germany is also very important here. While the other 3 are rather, I would say, refugee transit countries, which does not mean that those countries do not produce valuable solutions and good practices, but we do see that Poland and Germany at the moment take on most of the refugees. And therefore we have to look closer at those 2 countries. In fact, when I talk to my German people in Germany, like local experts and mayors and so forth, they're very interested in what's happening here in Poland. Actually, there's interest in exchange. Perhaps that's something which could come out of this forum, that Germany and Poland work together more closely on a best practice learning from each other level, right? So what does this Ukrainian refugee crisis, in many ways, is quite different to previous crises. Remember Syrian, North Africa, and Afghanistan, and so forth. What's different? Couple of points. Number 1, the tsunami-like wave since February this year, which has sort of came over neighboring countries in Europe, partly because of the safe land route, proximity, and so forth. We see a very uncertain demand situation. We do not know, for example, how many more people are coming. I just had a conversation with one of your colleagues here, and it could be that up to 1 million more people are coming in winter. We don't know. How many are going back? The pendulum, going backwards and forward situation, creates a lot of uncertainty around demand. So how big is the problem is one of those issues. If you look at the profile of the refugees, very different to the past. Often, you look at Syria, Afghanistan, you had initially male, maybe young male coming in. Now we have actually mothers and children, disabled people, and their pets, cats, dogs coming with them. Very different profile of refugees. Expectations, many of them want to go back. They're forced to stay, almost forced to integrate. So expectation, outcome mismatches here. Also what we see is a strong welcome culture. Katarzyna mentioned it before, people welcome them. Here in Poland, it's particularly strong, but also in Germany and many other countries. So we can see a wave of, you say, golden hearts, or something like a nice term, right? But we also see tensions rising, not just between host populations and refugees, but also other refugee communities don't have to enjoy the same rights of freedom and of labor market access and moving where they want. So that also creates some tensions already. Very important, the last point. Refugees are largely attracted to urban locations. This is very much a city, at the moment, a city challenge. That's where we have to probably look at first and foremost at solutions right now. Short-term accommodation, we already compiled a good picture here. Refugees are usually decentrally and privately housed. Germany, 80%, very different to the collective accommodation type we've seen in previously, which means we have quite different dynamics here. Governments try to help, but are stretched to the max. They reimburse, help, but it's not easy. A wide range of stakeholders is involved. Solidarity housing, the role of diaspora, the role of just social networks are so important these times, cultural networks as well. But if you look at long-term housing, and that's what we really want to explore here, we have to look at the baseline situation in those countries. So just 4 slides, quick one, not too far going into it. Probably the most important, the 10-year structure. If you look at Poland, Hungary, Romania, Slovakia, those new member states, what you can see is those red columns here. These are outrightly owned housing, where people own their own housing. In Romania, it's extreme, but also in Poland, we have almost 3/4. Germany, you can see very different situation. The housing system in Germany differs quite a bit from the new member states. The other one here is the private rental sector. which is so important at the moment for accommodating housing refugees from Ukraine. But we can see in the new member states, the private rental sector is rather very small and also to some degree under-regulated. The third one is subsidized housing, more affordable housing. Here, in fact, Poland, if you look, 11.1% is actually one of those actors who can teach others what to do. You have the most subsidized housing, and that means we can learn probably a lot from you in terms of new programs and so forth. Private sector, the owner without a mortgage, and that's important, or owner with a mortgage situation, that's this slide here, shows, if you look at the outstanding residential loans to GDP ratio, that actually Poland, which is the green line here, as well as Romania and Hungary, actually have little exposure to the financial markets, which means the risk of defaulting loan zone are relatively low here. Slovakia, a bit different. Germany also has a higher exposure. So overall, this is good news, I would say. Let's look at the social outcome. Overcrowding, I think you just mentioned it. Poland in the middle with 37 on this ratio here shows overcrowding already an issue in Poland, much more so than in Germany, and therefore we have to think about actually how do we deal with that. COVID-19 told us that this is important, that we have enough space to live, right? And the last one, again, very important, new construction. If you want to build us out of the current problems, then Poland again here, if you look at the green line, shows for 12 years that per 1,000 inhabitants, your new construction has been better than other countries. Question is, how have you done it? You know, is there something to take now with us in the new times? Let's see. Stick with Poland, a quick Polish zoom in. You have some interesting programs going on based on three big overarching goals. Number one, enhancing access to housing for households who cannot afford rental prices. This is about subsidization of housing. Number two, helping those who are marginalized, homeless, or in danger of being homeless. So helping the very, very housing deprived. Number three, helping all of Polish people and also Ukrainian refugees in terms of living conditions and energy poverty. So these are three pillars of the housing policy in Poland. I think this is a good starting point, isn't it? There is then a lot of interesting programs here, which I cannot go too much into it, but you can read it and maybe talk it through yourself. You're probably very familiar with those ideas. Apartment Plus program, the House for Start program, rental housing fund program, and the new demand side subsidies, which have started last year. So this is interesting food for thought, and certainly we can discuss how well that works and what should be done, which we don't have time today. What our project has found in terms of the three strategies for short-term housing is, it has been said before, transforming existing premises for temporary accommodation, number one. Number two, working with municipalities, that municipalities invest more into affordable housing in cities, number two. Number three are those programs, Apartment Plus and others we just talked about before, where the government helps and intervenes, right? This, if you want to look at it, is a bit of a slide I produced 2 days ago that sort of sums up where we probably in this project want to go, although it's more my thinking, and I guess the project is much bigger than me, but you have to think about this. But you can see a current situation where are refugees housed right now, diaspora friends, ad hoc private accommodation, in the private rental market based on contracts, collective accommodation. I would say Germany, probably 20-25% are collectively housed, and also homeless. I'm not quite sure about this situation. Not sure if Fianza or others have numbers on this. What we want to look at later is the integration side, longer term. And you can see two cycles here around this highly aspirational term, housing-led integration. The inner circle is about housing, starting from housing system access, housing quantity, housing quality, housing location, housing outcomes, including affordability, livability, you name it. But on the outer ring, you can see the very important integration, service kind of integration needs that are also very important. If you start on the top right, labor market integration of refugees and training, related language and integration courses, the childcare and schooling on top, Without having your children into adequate, care, how can you work? It doesn't really work. It belongs together. The welfare, social disability support, and the wider community social integration. So this, let's say, wider integration infrastructure and the housing infrastructure have to be thought together and have to be integrated together for good outcomes. And if you look at how do we do this, some just very quick preliminary 6 strategies that can guide our thinking. I'm sure there are more, but I think this is really quite important. Number 1, working with the existing housing stock, what's already out there. It's also much easier in terms of finance because it's very hard at the moment to organize finance for, new housing. It's actually, much easier to go into the existing housing stock. So if you look at rental sub-rentals, using empty homes and second homes, looking into shared living arrangements, and also very important, the conversion from commercial to residential property. That is probably an option in our cities now. If you think about also the transformations with COVID-19, supply chain adjustment, and so forth. Existing housing stock, utilize underused and unused spaces in existing housing stock, very important. Number 2, nevertheless, we have to look into construction and retrofitting. Despite all the challenges, it's important here to bring actors together, resources, finance, and incentives to build and retrofit and modernize in order for refugees to be accommodated, but also for our own sake. So here it's about, in particular, I would highlight the second aspect here, what I call anti-building freeze coalitions. So we have to avoid the building freeze. We have to be able to build. Otherwise, we have a huge problem, right? How do we do this? I'm not sure. We have to actually really talk to the actors and find out and think about it hard. It's about also new building techniques, modular digital tools, although we know housing is notoriously difficult for innovation. We know that. Green, carbon sensitive retrofitting, and we have to keep in mind demography. Europe is becoming older, and disability. We have to look at urban solution first and foremost. Not the only one, but first and foremost. One big problem, housing in urban localities and cities is scarce. Affordable housing, we have basically a problem everywhere now in Europe, around the world or even, but we have good conditions for access, for plug-in, for infrastructure provision, for services and so forth. This is an interesting and dilemma, but we have to somehow deal with that. Boost affordable and social housing and take advantage of the opportunities for Ukrainian refugees to plug in, because we have the density of services and of community there. It needs municipal leadership. It needs certainly also municipal finance arrangements. And it certainly needs a partnership division of labor, people, government, civil society, businesses working together, right? The opposite issue we have in what I call small city rural locations. Here, housing usually is not so much the issue because we do have vacant property, we have cheaper land and so forth, but infrastructure, access, transport is a big issue, right? So this could only really work for those parts of the refugee community that are more likely to be flexible, mobile, and better resourced. Otherwise, it's not going to work. But we have to think about infrastructure provision, labor market integration. We have to think hard about digital strategies and so forth. It's almost the opposite of the urban the urban solutions. Coming to the end soon, I know we're pressed for time. 10-year solutions. We have to look back to the slide. Remember those different tenures and think about where should Ukrainian refugees be integrated. Here in Poland, it's probably quite a bit about thinking about the owner-occupied apartment and housing market, but also the subsidized rental is so extremely important. And you have already done some good work here. It's about social and affordable housing provision from municipal, cooperative, limited non-profit tenures. Germany is also trying to rethink their approach. Germany is not doing well with subsidized housing overall. Has been a shrinking housing stock now. So we have to learn actually and reinvent our models. And the final point I want to make here is so important. It's the institutions. It's the policy, the institutions around us. It's almost the fabric of how things work out, the how we do things. So here it's important that trust and partnership are really important. It means we have to clearly look at winners and losers and all of that. We have to look at the intrastate cooperation that governments work together from EU level down to their local government. We have to make sure state, civil society work together, interlock very well, good practice scaling and transfer, and the promotion of good practices, including social rental agencies, which we hear about in a second, and other good models. So at the end, what I want to say is, there are probably strategies. It's not going to be easy at all. We have to take a step back because we're living in very dynamic times. Think hard, work hard. But I think this, what I put here in red, is probably the base for everything else. We need strong mission and visions, good leadership, strong advocacy, good agendas, and good follow-through implications, follow-up and implementing. We have to set directions in the right areas. We have to guide reprioritization and align actors and resources. So Habitat for Humanity International, Habitat for Humanity in Poland, many other of those organizations you're representing have a key role to play here. And that's why I'm so excited also to speak to your event today. Thank you very much. Quick thank you note at the end to Habitat, to my colleagues from Budapest and from around Europe, and of course to your kind audience. The last word, I tried hard on the train yesterday. I practiced with a lady next to me how to say thank you in Polish. It's not easy, right? In Deutsch, in Germany, we say Dankeschön, danke. In English, thank you. That's easy for me. How do I say this? Dziękuję. It's hard, but you know what I mean. Thanks a lot.
Bardzo dziękuję panu doktorowi za ten niezwykle ciekawy wstęp. Po nim już nie mogę doczekać się kolejnych wystąpień i tym bardziej zapraszam serdecznie na scenę partner zarządzający Obiktią, ukraińską kancelarią, panią Olenę Sztoryn.
Dzień dobry, ladies and gentlemen. I want to start and say thank you. Thank you to Rihanna and Katarzyna and to everybody, to Polish people, for your support, Ukrainian people. And 2 days ago, I was at Recovery Forum in Ukraine, and I have this invitation and come here and want to share with you all main points what we discussed, because we start discussing recovering and rebuilding of Ukraine. And my mission here to help you to feel why this impact is so powerful for your market, and why we are together, yes, in all these challenges. And want to see my presentation. Okay, and here should be video. Okay, and it can be, can you start with video and with sound? Okay, you can see here, it was a presentation of the mayor of Irpin city. Irpin city, it was like this beautiful city near Kiev. We have kindergartens, houses, hospitals, everything, and people lived happy in this city. And after the war started, everything was destroyed. And you will see this moment here soon. It will be good if it will be with music, but you can see the big damage that we have in this city. And it's not only Irpin. In Sumy region, Kiev region, Chernihiv region, Donetsk, Lugansk, we have the same situation. And people don't have any other solutions. They have to come to other countries and find safe life. So what we have for this time? And today it's very important to discuss solutions because I was presented at this recovery forum, and we speak with our governmental authorities and business how to help, how to find solutions, how to set up economy. Because without strong economy, without to give people opportunity to work, people can't survive and can't find opportunity to rent houses, to rent apartments in Poland, in other European countries. So this is like very important to discuss today. So what we have according to rapid damage and needs assessment, which was provided by European Bank and governmental institutions of Ukraine and Euro Commission. Full damages that we have and estimated for reconstruction and recovery needs, it's 349 billions. Housing it from all this circle, yes, we can see that housing, it's 69 billions we need to recover it. And this is figures for 1st of June. And for now, it's more bigger. And it's growing every day because, for example, two days ago, I was in Kiev and I spoke with my friends, with my colleagues, and everybody says that the damages so big that estimate it day by day, it's very difficult. And I think that we will see soon new estimates and new figures, which will be more bigger than this one. And the recovery and reconstruction needs will combine of something, yes. And what we have and what we discussed for now from the Polish side, that Polish government program provide Ukraine humanitarian aid to, and this is in Ukraine, this is not in Poland, and we have temporary accommodation. This is modular houses. Today we have 18 modular towns for more than 6,000 people in Kiev, Lviv, Chernihiv regions. It's safe regions, and they want to provide a total amount of 29 for more than 10,000 people. But this is not very big, let's say, amount to help people to stay in Ukraine, because to stay in Ukraine, we have to provide people places for where they can live. And I decided to speak about these two projects because I in touch with that, yes, from the business side, let's say, and from my personal side, social rental program. it works in Poland, and this is thanks Habitat initiative, and it really works, and it helps people to rent apartments. It helped Ukrainian people to rent apartments. People running from war, not from they are poor or something like that. People have money and they need to rent apartments, but they have some kind of problems, language problems, mental problems. They come to new places. They need help, and this program works very well. And I also used it, and I'm very grateful for that. And this is a very good model. My idea that I have for this 8 months is I see good potential in Poland that you have a lot of good manufacturing of modular houses, and not only container houses. I speak about modular houses, high quality, and from wood or steel. But based on steel or wood, and it can be good solution to combine all these two decisions, to build modular towns for people from Ukraine for now, for example, to use this social rental program, and after we will win, and we don't need this social apartments, social buildings. You can use it for solving your problems in Poland, because I know that in Poland also a big problem with social housing, and people who in needs don't help other people in needs effectively. Yes, so if Polish people will have good decision for their housing, they will be enforced to help Ukrainian people, and maybe this is win-win balance. It's good decision for both our countries. Okay, and okay, and now about something pleasant, about money. Who will give us money for recover Ukraine and for to be together in this recovery? I think that of course we have different institutions, World Bank, Euro Commission, and different donations that can help us. But to my mind, business, Polish business and Ukrainian business can be involved in this process deeply. I think that insurance is one of the main points that can be here in this process. I know that in Polish market you have KUKE, yes, and we are working now in a pilot project with MIGA, World Bank institution, and they provide our insurance after insurance risk from the war. This the first pilot project, and we expected that it will be like for big projects. It started, and my second point that all this process should have some kind of insurance, and this it should give developers, construction companies encouraged to build this social housing. And of course, we are in Ukraine, feel that Polish partners, Polish friends are together with us in this fight. Yes, and I hope in recovering also we will be together and we will share all this. I think that it will be big challenge, yes, big responsibility, but big profit also for both countries. And we are open to creating partnerships, consortiums. I have already a partnership with Miller Canfield Polish company, Polish office, and my company is a part of one of the biggest confederation of builders in Ukraine who are requested from me every day to go to Polish market to create some consortium with Polish companies to set up business, to export their products and to set up economy. Let's say, I think that we will win soon, and we together are stronger. Слава Україні і дякую bardzo.